Your mind is the most dangerous weapon you'll ever possess, or the most effective tool others will use against you. Most men don't realize it, but their thoughts aren't their own. Every opinion they defend, every desire they chase, every instinct they obey, was planted there. Society, algorithms, and emotions have turned the modern man into a machine that reacts, not one that thinks. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Control a man's mind, and you don't need to control his body. He'll willingly walk the path you choose for him. The tragedy is that most men today mistake mental noise for intelligence. They scroll endlessly, consume endlessly, and yet can't command a single clear thought. Their mind has been conquered without a single shot fired. But there's another way, a rare, dangerous way, to reclaim your mental throne. A method to rewire your brain so it obeys you, not your emotions. A way to think with ruthless clarity, like the rulers and strategists who could not be manipulated. This is Machiavelli's forgotten brain hack, and once you understand it, no one will ever control you again. But first, you need to understand the biggest lie you've been told about intelligence itself. We've been taught since childhood that intelligence means knowing more, memorizing facts, collecting degrees, quoting books. Society glorifies the man who can recite, not the man who can see. But Machiavelli would have laughed at this illusion. Because knowledge without strategy is like a sword in the hands of a fool, dangerous, but easily turned against him. Look around. We live in the information age, yet people are more confused, divided, and emotionally reactive than ever. Everyone thinks they're smart because they can Google an answer or repeat a political slogan. But that isn't intelligence. It's programming. True intelligence is not what you know. It's how you interpret what you know. The so-called educated elite often fall hardest into this trap. They drown in data, but can't read people. They master theories, but fail to master themselves. They mistake intellect for awareness, and that's why they're easy to manipulate. A clever politician, a marketer, or even a romantic partner can pull their strings simply by triggering their emotions. Machiavelli understood this centuries before psychology existed. A man ruled by his feelings, even if he's brilliant, is still a pawn. Real power doesn't come from information. It comes from perception. The rulers of every era have known this secret. They don't need to know everything, only what truly matters. They see patterns others ignore, intentions others can't read, and weaknesses others refuse to admit. That's the difference between the thinker and the thought-controlled. So while the masses chase more data, the Machiavellian learns to think sharper. He filters, observes, and analyzes from a distance. He knows that clarity, not clutter, is the true mark of genius. And that brings us to the next question. If intelligence isn't knowledge, then what exactly is it? To answer that, we turn to Machiavelli himself and his ruthless definition of what it really means to be intelligent. Machiavelli never defined intelligence by what a man knows, but by what he sees. To him, the truly intelligent man was not the one who spoke the most, but the one who observed the deepest. In The Prince, he described how rulers rise and fall not through luck or knowledge, but through perception, the ability to read people, anticipate moves, and stay emotionally detached while others lose their composure. To see clearly is to rule. That's the essence of Machiavellian intelligence. He understood that the mind is constantly at war with itself. Emotions cloud judgment, pride distorts truth, and desire blinds reason. The man who conquers his emotions conquers the game. The one who can look at chaos and remain still gains a power few ever touch. It's not about knowing more. It's about feeling less when it matters most. Modern neuroscience confirms what Machiavelli sensed intuitively. The average man reacts before he even thinks. His brain, hijacked by dopamine and fear, is built to respond to stimuli, not analyze them. But the Machiavellian mind functions differently. It pauses. It studies. It turns emotion into data. Each reaction becomes a clue to others' weaknesses, not an exposure of his own. This kind of intelligence cannot be learned from a book. It must be trained through awareness, the daily discipline of noticing your impulses before you obey them. It's a skill that makes you immune to manipulation, Because when you no longer react, others lose their control over you. Machiavelli's genius wasn't that he understood politics. It's that he understood human nature. He saw that most people are predictable, guided by fear, vanity, and approval-seeking. And he knew that the man who can predict others while concealing his own motives becomes untouchable. That is true intelligence, seeing reality as it is, not as you wish it to be, but understanding this is only half the battle. To wield this power, you must rewire how your brain thinks. And that's where Machiavelli's hidden brain hack begins. Because once you learn to control your own mind, you unlock the mental code that makes you 10x smarter and impossible to control. Here's the truth Machiavelli understood long before modern psychology gave it a name. The most powerful mind is the one that can observe itself. Most men never reach that level. They live trapped inside their thoughts, reacting, defending, arguing, never realizing they're being moved by invisible forces. They are slaves not to a master, but to their own untrained emotions. The Machiavellian, however, learns the most dangerous skill in human history. Conscious detachment, the ability to step outside your thoughts and watch them without obeying them. This is the brain hack that makes you 10x smarter and impossible to control. Imagine standing above your mind like a strategist overlooking a battlefield. Your emotions are soldiers, rage, fear, lust, pride, all screaming for orders. The weak man listens to whichever shouts the loudest. But the Machiavellian waits. He studies the terrain. He understands that the first emotion to react is usually the enemy's weapon. Detachment is not apathy. It's awareness sharpened into a blade. Machiavelli hinted at this mental distance when he advised rulers to learn how not to be good. It wasn't a call to cruelty. It was a demand for clarity. To rule others, you must first rule yourself. And that means learning to think without the interference of moral panic or emotional bias. Detachment allows you to see people as they are, not as you need them to be. It turns manipulation into a visible map, not a hidden trap. Modern neuroscience confirms it. When you observe your thoughts instead of identifying with them, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational control, activates, while the amygdala, the fear center, quiets down. In other words, observation literally rewires your brain toward power. You begin to process reality instead of reacting to illusion. When you cultivate this observer's mindset, something radical happens. You stop leaking energy. You stop oversharing, overreacting, over-explaining. You begin to see patterns. You notice when people try to provoke you. You sense lies before words are spoken. You become a strategist in a world of impulsive men. And the beauty of this hack is that no one can take it from you. It's invisible. You can walk through life appearing calm, even indifferent, while inside you're processing everything like a chess grandmaster 3 moves ahead. This is the transformation Machiavelli intended, not to make men ruthless, but aware. To awaken the kind of intelligence that makes control impossible. Because once you learn to separate your mind from your emotions, no one, not a woman, not a boss, not society itself, can play you again. But to understand how powerful this brain hack truly is, you need to see how it's already being used against you, every single day. The tragedy is that the Machiavellian brain hack didn't disappear, it was stolen. The same principles that once empowered kings and strategists are now used by governments, corporations, and influencers to control the modern man. They've studied what Machiavelli understood intuitively. The mind that reacts emotionally is easy to command. So they built entire systems designed to keep you reactive. Every notification, every viral video, every outrage headline, they're not random. They're deliberate triggers, engineered to hijack your attention and flood your brain with dopamine and cortisol. When you're in that emotional state, you don't think, you consume. You obey. Social media is the new battlefield, and emotion is the weapon. The powerful don't need to tell you what to think. They just need to make you feel angry, jealous, afraid, validated. Once they control your feelings, your thoughts follow automatically. That's why propaganda today doesn't look like propaganda. It looks like content. Even in relationships, the dynamic is the same. Emotional manipulation is everywhere. Love bombing, guilt trips, silent treatments, tests. People unconsciously copy what works to gain control. The one who stays calm, detached, and observant always holds the power. The one who reacts first loses. That's why Machiavelli warned against showing too much emotion, especially in politics and love. The more predictable you are, the more control others have over you. Emotional transparency may feel authentic, but it's often surrender disguised as honesty. Look deeper. And you'll see it everywhere, in the influencer who provokes your envy to sell you confidence, in the news anchor who feeds you fear to sell you obedience, in the partner who provokes guilt to maintain power. They all rely on one thing, that you'll react before you reflect. But when you apply Machiavelli's brain hack, conscious detachment, the spell breaks. You begin to see the manipulation. You feel the pull, but don't move. You sense the play, but don't participate. And that's when something incredible happens. The same tools used to control the masses become weapons of your liberation. But before you can use this power, you must confront the hardest truth of all, that most men willingly destroy their own intelligence. Here's the cruel irony. Most men don't need an enemy to enslave their minds. They do it themselves. The chains aren't made of steel anymore. They're made of stimulation. Constant noise. Endless distraction. A man who can't sit with silence cannot think strategically, and the world ensures he never gets the chance. Every ping on his phone, every meaningless argument online, every scroll through validation and outrage, it all chips away at his mental strength. His focus, once a weapon, becomes a bleeding wound. And like any addict, he tells himself he's relaxing or staying informed, not realizing he's trading depth for dopamine. Machiavelli would have called this self-inflicted weakness. In The Prince, he warned that a ruler who cannot master his own impulses will be ruled by them. The same applies to every man today. The modern trap isn't tyranny. It's comfort. Comfort keeps you reactive, predictable, and intellectually soft. You think you're choosing, but you're only selecting from options handed to you. This mental laziness is the death of intelligence. Because true intelligence requires friction, the struggle of solitude, the discipline of observation, the patience to let truth reveal itself. Most men fear that stillness. They can't stand being alone with their thoughts, because those thoughts expose how little control they truly have. The algorithm doesn't have to conquer you. It only has to keep you entertained. The weak man demands stimulation. The strong man demands clarity. The weak man chases feelings. The strong man studies them. The weak man escapes. The strong man evolves. Machiavelli understood that strength begins with restraint. If you can deny yourself unnecessary pleasure, you can deny others control over you. Each act of discipline, ignoring a trigger, mastering a craving, holding silence, is a declaration of sovereignty. But escaping the trap requires more than awareness. You must rewire your mind entirely to think, feel, and act from a place of deliberate power, not emotional compulsion. That's where the real transformation begins, when you learn to rebuild your mind into the fortress Machiavelli envisioned, calm, sharp, and impossible to invade. You can't think your way out of mental slavery. You must rebuild your mind. Machiavelli's wisdom was never about cruelty. It was about control. The kind that begins within. To become 10x smarter and impossible to manipulate, you must rewire how you process reality. It's not a motivational slogan. It's a neurological and philosophical reconstruction. There are 3 steps, 3 internal revolutions that transform the ordinary man into a Machiavellian thinker. Step 1. Awareness, seeing the machinery. Most men mistake motion for progress. They think because they're busy, they're in control. But awareness is not activity. It's clarity. You begin by watching your mind without judgment. Observe how easily you're provoked, how quickly emotion hijacks logic. Awareness turns the unconscious into the visible. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, the traps are obvious. You start catching manipulation in real time. The guilt trip in a text, the emotional bait in a headline, the subtle insult disguised as humor. Step 2. Detachment, severing emotional dependency. Once you see the machinery, you must step back from it. Emotional detachment doesn't mean numbness. It means choice. The ability to decide when and how to feel. Every time you resist reacting, when you pause before replying, when you refuse to defend your ego, you're strengthening the neural muscle of control. This is where most men fail. They equate emotion with authenticity. But a man ruled by feelings is authentic only to his programming. Detachment is liberation. It allows you to act strategically instead of impulsively, to speak with precision instead of reaction. Step 3. Strategic thinking, moving like a ruler. Once awareness and detachment take root, you can finally think like Machiavelli. Strategy replaces emotion as your compass. You begin to ask, what outcome does this serve? Who benefits if I react? Every decision becomes intentional. You move with purpose, not panic. You listen more, speak less, and act only when advantage aligns with timing. This is not manipulation, it's mastery. The same clarity that once made Machiavelli feared by kings is what makes you untouchable in life, love, and power. When this rewiring is complete, your brain becomes a fortress. The opinions of others no longer shake you. The chaos of the world no longer enters you. You respond only when you choose, and you choose from strength, not insecurity. That is the Machiavellian mind, aware, detached, and deliberate. The kind of mind that cannot be owned because it already belongs to itself. And once you reach this level of mastery, something profound happens. You stop merely surviving the world and start shaping it. The modern world doesn't reward intelligence. It rewards obedience. Men are trained to think within safe limits, to react instead of reflect, to feel instead of focus. But those who break free from that conditioning, those who master their own minds, become a new breed entirely. They become what Machiavelli envisioned centuries ago, men who think like rulers in a world of followers. This isn't about domination. It's about sovereignty, the kind that begins in thought and radiates into every area of life. When you understand the Machiavellian brain hack, you stop being manipulated by fear, approval, or desire. You move from emotional chaos to strategic calm, from being influenced to becoming influential. Every moment you resist distraction, every emotion you analyze instead of obey, every silence you hold instead of filling, you sharpen your mind. You become rarer, harder to read, and impossible to control. That is the essence of true intelligence, clarity under pressure. Most men will never reach this point. They'll keep reacting, consuming, and calling it living. But not you. You've seen behind the curtain. You know the truth, that control begins with awareness. So now you face a choice: go back to noise, or become one of the few men who actually think. Master your mind, and the world follows.